If you don't, as the child grows, is teach that child that others are important as well. And then as that child grows and learns more about the Bible, to teach that child that others' needs are more important than your own needs. And a lot of passages about that we're going to talk more about a little bit later on. But when we come to this idea to do good to all men, my circle of acquaintance is pretty small. How about yours? I mean, there are people that I see, of course, in the church. I see a lot of people, right? And so later on, when I see them again, it's like, I know that face, but I don't know that person. And that person, generally speaking, doesn't live close to me. One of the things God has done, He's put us in congregations where we can strengthen one another and encourage one another and work together in various works that need to be done. So I'm not always in a position to do good. But all of us live in a community. We have neighbors. You have people that you see, maybe not every day, but pretty regular, like, I don't know, because I don't know this community very well, but let's suppose that you shop. Probably you go to the same grocery store every time. I mean, every now and then, if they don't have what you need, you go somewhere else. But most of us, we get used to going to the same place. We go to the same bank every time. A lot of times we go to the same doctor, and we continue on, go to the same restaurant. My wife and I have favorite restaurants, and in those restaurants, we have favorite waitresses or waiters. And so we ask for them oftentimes when we're going in and sitting down. And we usually try to make some inroads with some of those people. So when God says, do good unto all men, that's the group. That's the group. You live right here in a community, and the idea is to do good to that community, do good for that community, not just children of God, but for that community. And He gives a reason. There are two reasons to do good unto all men. Number one, God just commanded it. We read that. If you've read the Old Testament at all, you recognize that God has, and I know that I'm not trying to speak of God in a way that makes Him human, but God has a soft part in His heart for the underprivileged. God has a soft spot in His heart for those who are abused. God has a soft spot in His heart for those who are poor. Everybody on earth is not created equal economically. Everybody on earth is not created equal physically. And I'm talking about in the sense of their health or their build or what they're able to do. Everybody on earth is not created intellectually equal. So there's lots of difference between us. And God has always had a soft spot in His heart for those who are not in the position of excelling physically at a lot of things. So He says, take care of them. I mean, that's what He's saying right here. I want you to take care of them. But then He's got another reason. In Matthew 5 and verse 16, and immediately all of you know, I know that verse. I know what that verse says. And that's right. It's one of the most used passages over the years. It's one of the most used passages, certainly in the Lord's church, but I suspect in a lot of places, because it's part of the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus says, he talks first of all, you're the salt of the earth. And He's talking to his disciples and others that are there that are children of God. You're the salt of the earth. Then He says, you're the light of the world. And He says, no man lights a candle and puts it under a bushel. Or rather, he puts it on a candlestick that it might give light to all that are in the house. But it's this next statement that means so much. But before we get to it, I want to quote John 3:16. You know that too. John 3:16 says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Let's pay attention to that first phrase. God so loved the world. You understand what that phrase means? It means that God's love for the world was so great. In other words, it wasn't, I love you. It's like you say to somebody, well, I love you to the moon and back, or I love you this much, or I love you more. But what you're trying to say to them is that there's a depth. There's a depth to the love that you have for them. So God says, God so loved the world. And we realize that what he's talking about is that it was just immense. It was so huge. His love for mankind was so huge that it required something special. I don't mean that God was required to do something. I mean that his love compelled him. You remember the Apostle Paul is going to say in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, the love of Christ constrains me in the King James, compels me in the New King James. The love of Christ. In other words, you just have this feeling. It's like, I've got to do something. You ever seen a newborn baby and you pick it up? You just want to hug it, or you want to make it laugh, or you want to kiss all over it, That's your feeling. So, God so loved the world. I just got to do something great. He gave his Son. How much greater could it be? He didn't just give his Son like saying, I'm going to send my Son down to do a little work among you. I'm going to send my Son because you're sinners and he needs to die for you. That's how great the love of God was. Now, we're talking about this idea of benevolence this morning. Do good unto all men. And here's the way Christ said it. Verse 16, Matthew 5, Sermon on the Mount. Let your light, now think, I hope this puts a different picture in your mind about it. Let your light so shine. I've got a neighbor. You do too. I've got a neighbor, we're on speaking terms. Matter of fact, the other day he was driving down the road and I was crossing the street from my house and he just pulled over and stopped and we talked for about 15 minutes. I like it. We're friendly with each other. He's done some things for me. I've done a couple of things for him. Small things, not big things. That's not what this verse means. This verse is way beyond that. We've got some folks that have moved in to go to school. And, they've given up their homes and they've moved there, gotten a different place to live, and they need things. They need some furniture. They need some dishes. They just need different things. And so first thing my wife and I did is said, what do you need? And they gave us a little list. We provided a little bit of it. We put that out among some people. Some other people provided some things. That's not what this is talking about. See, there are these opportunities. The Bible says you have therefore opportunity. Well, there are these opportunities that come, and they just virtually knock on your door. In other words, it's so obvious that there's this opportunity that how can you not at least offer, or how can you not, see it and try to help? I mean, it's like you're driving down the road and an old man or an old woman falls down in the street in front of you. That's an opportunity, right? You're going to stop. You're going to get out. It just knocks on the door. You can't pass that up. That's not what this is talking about. You remember the passage in Acts chapter 17, the Apostle Paul is preaching on Mars Hill. And he's talking about the existence of God. And he's talking about the fact that they were worshiping idols and there's this one true God that he wants to declare unto them. And he said, God that made the world That's what they needed to know. God that made the world. He goes on a little bit, and then he says, he doesn't need anything from us, seeing that he gives to all life and breath and all things, verses 27, 28. But that's not what this passage is talking about. It's not what John 3:16 is talking about. God created the world, and he gives men the ability to think. He gives men the ability to move their muscles. He gives men the ability to get together and to cooperate on the. That's all. That's not what he meant when it says God so loved the world. It's going beyond that. It's going to the fact that man has needs, has circumstances that are far greater, so he gave a son. So now, wouldn't you say that giving your son is going out of the way? That's going out of the way to help people. That's going out of the way to help his creation. I mean, his creation has the choice to be good. Let me ask you something. Have you ever resisted a temptation? Surely everybody here can say yes. You know, there's been a temptation, and I know we've given in to some. I realize that. But have you ever resisted a temptation? If you can resist one temptation, can you resist two? And you've done that. Can you resist three? And you've done that. Why is it then? Well, this is serious introspection on ourselves. If I can resist this one and this one and this one, why don't I resist this one? That's when I start doing what I want to do. You know, I start going the way I want. And God's love is so great. He says, I want to help them pass that. I don't want to give them what they deserve. I want to give them grace. I want them to spend eternity with me. So he gives his son. Now he comes along here and he says, I want you to let your light so shine. That's not the opportunity that knocks on the door. It's the opportunity that you go out of your way to make, that you go out of your way to fulfill. Not let your light shine. This is let your light so shine. I honestly know that the Bible teaches that a lot of people in this world are going to be lost. I understand that. But our task is to find as many as we can whose hearts we can help move in the direction of God. So he says, I want you to let your light so shine before men that in that process, in the doing of it, in the results, as they look at it, they come to glorify God. By the way, glorifying God is obeying God. That's where it's at. It's not just speaking good of God, it's certainly that, but it's also obeying God. So, in this idea of do good unto all men, then Christ says, here's how much good that you should do. So much that, first of all, it grabs men's attention. Right? It grabs men's attention. If they're going to come to glorify God, your task has to be so often, so unusual, so out of the ordinary, that they're like, well, I don't know why you did this, but I sure appreciate it. I don't know what causes you to be so kind, but thank you so very much. It's a wonder to them what you've done, but it's not just a wonder that you've done it, but that you've done it again and again and again. Think about that idea. We kind of have a tendency. You tell me this is not true. It's true for me. I have a tendency to turn inward. to think about the things that make me comfortable, to think about the things that I need to do, to think about the things that I want to do, the things that I want to accomplish. Have you ever heard anybody talk about a bucket list? Have you ever heard anybody say that on that bucket list is to reach 100 souls before I die? Bucket lists are not about that, are they? Not the way people think. Bucket lists are about things that I want to do, places that I want to go. Oh, we need to think about that. Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowly. This is an amazing statement. We're sitting here in the midst of the right side of what is one of the worst situations we have in our country. We have a mixed congregation, black and white. You know how much prejudice there is in our world? And I know you do, because you see it and you hear about it and people talk about it and there's violence over it and so forth. He says, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem. I'm not sure what the New King James says there, but it'll be the same concept. Let each think of the other person as better than themselves. Now let's think about that for just a minute. More valuable than yourself. Do good unto all men. Why would that be? Because you actually consider other people to be more valuable than you. You consider their life to be more important than yours. You consider their accomplishments to be something that you want to build up on if they're doing the right thing. Have you you ever heard of jealousy? You ever heard of covetousness? Jealousy and covetousness, that's the opposite of what Philippians 2 is talking about. Jealousy and covetousness means what's yours should be mine. You know, what you've accomplished is what I should be accomplished. The praise that you're getting is the praise that I deserve. I've seen that even among preachers. I hate to say it. I've had that pride myself. Not as a preacher, but as a man. I mean, pride, that's a tough thing. The more, from the world standpoint, the more successful that we are, the harder it is that we have to fight pride. Do you realize that there would be no prejudice if we obeyed Philippians 2 and verse 3? Esteem the other better than ourselves. There'd be no jealousy if we were heeding Philippians 2 verse 3. We're esteeming the other better than ourselves. And listen to the thing that led to that statement. Listen to the thing that allows, that keeps that statement from being broken. He said, let there be no strife, no vain glory. Now I'm quoting the King James. No strife, no vain glory among you, but let each esteem the other better than themselves. You will not do good unto, now listen to it, you will not do good unto all men until we have that attitude. That's powerful. That's powerful. You know, I live in my own little world. You know, my circle is small. I know that that in a sense I kind of get out of myself, like, I've come 2 hours from home to preach. Well, that's a bigger circle than where I live. But I want to tell you, in my everyday life, there's a few people, and I'm ashamed to say that, there's a few people that I try to have an impact on. And I want to have an impact on them, all right enough. But I need to broaden my circle of influence. I need to broaden my circle of thinking about things. You're in Philippians 2. I want to go just a little bit further to Philippians 2. We might touch on this in another spot as well. But go down to, let's see. Well, I have lost my spot that I want. Let me make sure. Hang on just a second. I've lost it. You can find it when I tell you what it says. It talks about the fact that we live in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation among whom our lights must shine. Where? Out into that crooked and perverse generation. How do we do that? Remember what we're talking about, Matthew 5:16. We're letting our light so shine. We're letting it be that big. And we do. Isn't it interesting that the Bible could say that in the first century? You live in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, and it's true right now. We live in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation.
That's Philippians 2:15.
Thank you very much. Why didn't I see that? Oh, I see why. I'm in Colossians. That makes a difference, doesn't it? But thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I see that. Very good. So I just can't. I can't impress enough. I can't impress enough because I have been so guilty of this in my life, of thinking that my small circle of my interest and my concern was all the bigger I needed to get. I needed to let my light shine here. I didn't need to let my light so shine to get up there. Light's an amazing thing, isn't it? It's dark. I have a digital clock on my bedstand. It's the only light in my room until my wife has what do you call it? Curlers, has curlers in there. And when I turn on those curlers, that's a little bitty light. But between that digital and that little bitty light at midnight, I can see everything in the room. I don't see it as clearly as I do in daylight, but I can see everything in the room. That's the way light is. The light has the way of dispelling darkness. That's what we want to do. We want to bring people to the light, not to the darkness. And we do that by letting our light so shine. In other words, we're not just shining it in my little circle. We're shining it outside to a bigger circle. And the only way I can do that, the only way you can do that, is by going out of your way to do good you wouldn't normally do. I'll give you a kind of a thing you can do in evangelism that works, but it works over the long haul, not over the short haul. And I don't know this town. I don't even know if you have a newspaper here. Used to, this could all be done through the newspaper, but I'm not sure that it's that way anymore. But somebody has a new child. And so you're out of the car. Congratulations on the new birth. I hope he, she, whatever it is. You just include some nice note. They don't even know you from Adam. But you do that and you put down there, so and so, member of the church at Henderson Church of Christ, and that's all. And you just leave it there. And I think, well, that's nice, but they don't know you, and it doesn't And now, some people it might impact, and they're going to come and see. But some people, it just wonder why they sent me that. And then a year later, you send a birthday card for the birthday of that child. You sign the same way. I got a card from them last time. Who is this? You know? And you do that for 3 or 4 or 5 years running, and I guarantee you, obviously my guarantee is not like God's. When God guarantees, it's certain. When I guarantee, it's like, you know, it might happen, it might not. But I guarantee you, they're going to come visit the church. You do that about their wedding, a wedding couple. How about somebody that's lost their mate? You don't know them from Adam, but you write a sympathy card. And a year later, when it's really hard, or on Christmas when it's really hard, or on if you know, sometimes the obituary says they were married on such and such a day, and you know that date, and you write that card when it's really hard, that sympathy and heartfelt card, and you do that for a year or two, they're going to come. It's just human nature. They're going to come see about you. Maybe sometimes you reach somebody that's so hard-hearted, they don't even appreciate it. But I doubt that. You know what you're doing when you do that? I mean, that's unusual stuff. You're letting your light so shine. You're going beyond the ordinary. So somebody's house burns down. Everybody and their brother brings stuff. They bring furniture. They bring clothes. They bring silverware and plates and food. And everybody and their brother does that. But the year passes, and you wonder how they're doing. So you drop by with some little house gift or some little thing or other, because they've rebuilt there, they've moved someplace else or whatever. And you say, I was just thinking that I know you lost everything a little while back. I want you to know that you're still in our prayers. We're still remembering you. And by the way, you need to be doing that. Don't lie about it, obviously. You need to be doing that. That's going to have an impact. Let your light so shine. I want you to turn your Bibles to the book of Job, the 29th chapter. Job's an amazing book. It's an amazing book because of all that we learn about God, an amazing book because of all that we learn about people. And it's an amazing book because Job was an exceptionally unusual man. I have a friend. I probably have a lot that I don't know about, but I have a friend that I know has a lot of money. A lot of money. And he's forever using it to help this event, that event, this person with the gospel, that person. I mean, he spends his money for stuff like that. I want you to read with me what's said about Job. We're in chapter 29, and we're going to read just verses 15 and 16. There's a lot more we could read, and a little bit later on in chapter 31 we can read more. But he says, I was eyes to the blind. This is before he had all this sickness and lost everything. He said, I was eyes to the blind. I was feet to the lame. I was a father to the poor, and I searched out the case that I did not know. You know what he's saying with that last statement? He's saying, I'm letting my light so shine. In other words, I didn't know about this, but I looked out for it. That's what I was talking about a while ago when we were talking about births or deaths or marriages or, whatever that it is. You're reaching out beyond that. You go see somebody a year after a tragedy's happened and you try to take care of those needs. You realize that some of you struggles financially all the time is struggling more. And I know that sometimes I like to look at myself and think, well, I struggle financially. I have struggled financially, and by the way, I'm not struggling financially now. But I have a lot in the past, and yet I never have. I never have because God always provided everything that we needed. Even when the IRS didn't want any money from me because I made so little, God still provided everything that I need. Well, that's what Job's looking at. Maybe you know people like that. Maybe you know people that you're richer than. And so you seek out because you don't know. What a great thing if the men here in the congregation get together in a business meeting and they say, okay, what can we do more? What can we encourage one another? We can do a lot of things individually, but what can we do more to let our light so shine? And you begin brainstorming the different things you can do to reach out beyond the ordinary. The ordinary is if your neighbor's yard grows up, you cut it because he's in the hospital and he's not able to be there. We got people that way and say, is there anything I can do around the house? That's ordinary stuff. That's right. But to let your light so shine, to reach out, and all of the different ways that we're inventive. We're men. We can come up with all kinds of ideas, and we're also people. So needs we have are needs that other people have. And everybody expects us to do good to the people we know. That's our circle. That's our circle of folks. What about doing good to the people that we don't know? I suspect, I don't know how many there were, but here in Job, he probably saw some blind people. I don't know what he means when he says I was eyes for the blind. Literally, of course, that might mean he took them by the arm and he led them. It could mean something else in the way that he made provision for them. He provided things that they couldn't provide for themselves. Because I suspect that being blind in that day, just like in Jesus' day, that being blind made a man a beggar. He says, I was eyes to the blind. And he said, I was feet to the lame. I mean, they couldn't walk. I took care of that. You remember Peter and John coming up to the gate, beautiful there, actually, and silver and gold have I none, but such as I have, give I thee. And then Jesus Christ rise up and walk, and he did. That was more than most people were doing. He was just expecting some alms, and that would have helped. That would have been a good thing. But I went out of my way. When I was living down, and not just there's been some other places it's true about too. But when I was living down here at Stanford, we had a pantry. Anyway, people would come by for help. We had 3 men in the congregation who happened to also operate, be managers. They didn't own, well, one owned it and the other 2 were operators of businesses that employed a lot of folks, right? So they told me, said, anytime anybody comes and is in need of a job, you send them over here. We'll give them a job. They'll have a job if they want to go. Now, I hate to say it, but in all that time that we were there, nobody ever took us up on that. But here's the point that I'm making about it. That's going out of your way. It's one thing to stop up here on the corner where somebody has a sign that says homeless and you give them $5, or maybe you even take them and buy them a meal. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. But boy, wouldn't it be something if you could? Now, Job could. Maybe we couldn't. But wouldn't it be something if you could say, hey, I got a job for you. It's going to be permanent. And then Job said, by the way, Job was wealthy at a time, like our time. Job was wealthy at a time that there were a lot of beggars. Just like there were through the Jewish time, and we see it in Jesus' time. And so he could do things that maybe you and I can't do. But if I were to ask you to raise your hand, how many are you going to eat after services today? your hand to go up. I don't mean eat here. I mean, I know you're going to eat here. And some of you are going to eat here, but some of you are probably going to go home. You're still going to eat. I doubt there's anyone here that is thinking, I don't have a meal today. I don't have a meal for tomorrow. I like the poor widow who gave away all that she had. What a trust in God that was. Gave away all that she had. She wasn't worried about tomorrow. So we're probably not in that category. We're actually probably in the category of the rich. We're clothed, as it were, in purple and fine linen. Not everybody's always in the category of the rich, but usually, to be honest with you, usually by the time I speak to a congregation like this in a place like this, everybody's in that category. Everybody drives a car. Everybody, I won't say owns a house, but either owns a house or rents a house. I rent. You know, everybody's in that position where they can afford their housing in some way. Everybody's able to go to, Walmart and buy clothes, to the what do they call that dollar store? Dollar Tree, and buy dishes. We're able to do that. Now, I know that you might not imagine it, but Teresa and I have done mission work in a number of places. And I've known a lot of folks that never had a home. Never had a house to lay down on. When the day ends, they lay down right where they are. And that's where they sleep. I've never experienced that. Here's what I'm trying to say. Am I supposed to quit at some particular time? I mean, I'm sure I'm supposed to quit at some time. Okay. About 5 more minutes. I can imagine that you may know people from time to time who have needs. But honestly, and I'm not saying this to somehow say there's something here that's not everywhere, but we live in America. And despite all of our faults, and despite all the arguments that you hear about, most people here know where to get a meal. Even if it's at the soup kitchen, they know where to get a meal. I've worked with the homeless, people out on the street, invited them to come in, and they won't do it. So, I don't know all that goes into their mind about that kind of stuff. I've had people come by who didn't have a job, and I offer them a job, and they say, I kind of like the way I live. I don't get that. I don't understand it. But here's what I know. Teresa had a friend. It's been years and years ago when she was a girl. And it came out of I think it was an ice cream shop or a sandwich shop or whatever like that. And there was a man sitting there at the door that was asking for money. And, the normal idea is when people are doing that, they could do better for themselves if they would. And by the way, sometimes they could. That's right. Sometimes they could. But her friend gave this person enough money to buy a hamburger or whatever it was. I don't recall. Anyway, Teresa questioned it. Why? And she pointed out that however he chooses to spend that money, I don't know. That's up to him. But I know that I've done right in helping. Let's not judge our so shining by whether or not we think it's well used. Let's just judge it by what we can do to glorify God by our action, and maybe, just maybe, cause this person to glorify God in the future by something that they come up with. That's what Galatians 6:10 is about. Let us do good unto all men, especially to them of the household of faith. And by the way, we're letting our light so shine, we take care of the brethren. Because people know when we take care of the brethren. They learn about that. They know because so-and-so says, well, the brethren help me with this, or they help me with that, or whatever. Over the years, my wife and I have been helped by the brethren. Not always a local congregation, but sometimes just individually. We have been helped by the brethren countless times. We have a few people who have helped us unbelievably. Over the years, in the mission work that I've done, raising funds for other things, my home congregation, they've been contributing at least 40 years, maybe 50 years, to the work that I've done in various places. Sometimes for me, in mission work, but lots of times it's just for work that I had tried to initiate and was trying to raise funds for. And they help. We've been helped by the brethren. So when it says, do good to all men, first thing, it's let your light so shine. In other words, not ordinary good, do that. But go beyond the ordinary good to do more. That's the thing that's hard for me. You know why? I'm self-serving. I got plans for the day. I got plans for my money. I got plans for my time. So it takes some thought to get outside that and do something. And so, do good to all men. And then it helps when we do it to the household of faith. Number one, because we unite ourselves. When we are together through thick and thin, you used to say that, I don't know if they say that anymore, but when we're together through thick and thin, we unite ourselves, and therefore we lift each other up. I sometimes do this lesson where I have a ladder to heaven, with steps on it, but the truth is, where you want to be is at the bottom of the ladder, just pushing everybody up in front of you. And that's what we do when we do good unto all men, especially to those of the household of faith. I appreciate your attention. I hope that it was helpful in some way.
Thank you, Brother Mike. We have a few minutes to look at the next.
Oh, yeah.